Another embargo has been lifted here today, and we're going to be talking about the yellow turbans for the Three Kingdoms. So in this video, rather than me playing through the campaign like I did not do with the previous embargo, I'm going to go through each one of these warlords in about a 10-minute segment on each one, talking about what makes them individualistic, what makes them unique, and really how the Yellow Turbans campaign differs a lot from the rest of the Three Kingdoms campaigns that you have to offer. Outlaws, Governors, and Coalition all for the most part play very similar, and they have mechanics that you will see that are going to be shared across all three of those campaign quote-unquote styles. Now the Yellow Turbans is a little bit more of a traditionalistic approach to the Total War formula. The way their reform system is actually more of the conventional research system that we've seen in Total War Warhammer, in Total War Rome, pretty much all of the other Total Wars up to this point. So we're going to start with, and again, as always, please be mindful of my pronunciations. I do the best I can, but at times I do completely mess this up. So we're going to start with Her Yi, or I've also heard it pronounced He Yi, so let me know which one I guess is more correct, or the better way, whatever the hell. We're going to start with Her Yi and end with Huang Chao, and talk a little bit about each one, what makes them different, and how their characters really work as a whole. So let's dive on into He Yi. Okay, so here is our faction summary for Her Yi. I'm going to go with Her Yi as my pronunciation because that's what the game uses. I feel like that's actually probably wrong, but it feels better than me just saying He Yi the entire video and sounding like I'm kind of questioning myself. So we'll take a look right now at Her Yi, but as a main thing, let's take a look at how the faction summary works for the Yellow Turban. It's entirely different. The Yellow Turban Rebellion was not just simply a rebellion, it was a rebellion of thought. It was about enlightenment. And that is really the focus here. Rather than working towards prestige, you will work towards, oh, come on, there we go, enlightenment. And as you gain enlightenment, you will progress up these ranks all the way to the Yellow Sky Mandate. This is, of course, going to be just like your Emperor Mandate when it comes to the other factions, but I guess that's more right around this point. Or is it Ascended? Yeah. Upon reaching this rank, 3 Han factions will proclaim themselves emperor, take control of the capitals of these pretenders to unite China. So basically, you're going to deal with the same mechanics, but almost like a reverse, like an anti-emperor mechanic, where you're going to shut down those other emperors and proclaim yourself as well liberated. That's really the big thing here, is putting an end to tyranny. So with this, you get a much different approach to the game. Now, you've seen how in the other videos where we talked about each one of these, from to the noble, to the second marquis, to the first marquis, to the duke, to the king, to the emperor, you're granted additional armies and all sorts of other things. It's different here for Yellow Turbans. It's a much more ramped up approach. So at the beginning, you start at balance, you have armies provided 5. It's only 2 for the other factions. So it wants you to have armies faster. You have access to cheaper military units with lower upkeep, so you can churn out very low quality armies very quickly to kind of swarm over some of your pretty obvious opponents. You start in a pretty turbulent area with each one of these lords. So taking a look over here at the Dominion of Her Yi, increased replenishment, population increases, recruitment cost, which is pretty awesome here, and obviously his playstyle is then focused on that population. Every single one of the Yellow Turban commanders starts with a unique unit, and that is not a unique unit that only that commander can get. That's important to note. This is just a unique unit that comes pre-unlocked, and I'll show you when we take a look at the reform tree. So they get access to the Yuxia, I think. Oh, still fuck. Aid the wounded, population growth, and income from commerce. Now this is an occupation option. So whenever you go to attack a territory, you can choose to occupy and aid the wounded, which really helps you get a lot of faction support quickly. You keep a high population in a town, and it increases your replenishment rate a lot better. So as a legendary healer, which we'll talk about that in a second too, it kind of lends itself to the narrative of Her Yi. In addition, you have a village healer, which is an economic building chain unique to Her Yi. Now, we've taken a look over at this. Let's look now at the individual characters for the Yellow Turbans. And this one segment might be longer than the other two because I'm going into the detail of the Yellow Turban factions as a whole. And this will be the same for each one of them with different little things that kind of differentiate them. So you can see here that we have Her Yi. We'll right-click him. And his little animated, well, see, it's animated because he's legendary. His little blip here is different. It's got two colors. It's red and green, saying that he's supposed to be focused more on resolve and instinct. Now, since he is a legendary character and he has a large part to play in the Three Kingdoms, his statistics are a little bit more skewed. Typically, when you look at like a Sentinel or a Champion who's just some generic character, their attribute bonuses are more in line with what their background is. So you can see Ye, leader of the people, and he's a legendary healer. So the way Yellow Turbans work is they don't have access to champions, sentinels, so on and so forth, so on and so forth. They have a mix. You can see here that Scholar is a mix between expertise and authority. Or that's the other guy here is Scholar as well. But the other one is command or veteran. Veteran is the last one. You have 3 classes to choose from: Scholar, Healer, or Veteran. And I'll see if we can get a Veteran in here in a bit. But they have different skill trees that are unique to their class up here that you can see. If you press F1, it'll tell you this is the class. This is the background of the character. Guao is a Jade Carver. That's his background, and that background is what dictates his attribute bonuses. That's the same for every character in throughout the entirety of Three Kingdoms. Sentinels will sometimes be, maybe not. Yeah, Sentinels are sometimes like tax collectors, so that'll benefit their cunning a lot, stuff like that. So as you kind of progress here with this faction, it's different because you're not dealing with specialized characters. Since you only have 3 characters to choose from, these characters all double dip, which is really cool. It's a different way of play. It's a lot more traditional because they're a lot more, they're focused across a wider spectrum. They're not so laser focused like they are throughout the rest of Three Kingdoms. I feel like when you play any other Total War game, any general can be whatever you want them to be. The Yellow Turban faction plays a little bit more, I guess, akin to that style of approach. Although you've got 3 characters and they're focused within their spectrum, they have a wider spectrum than just, say, a Sentinel or a Champion or a Vanguard, so on and so forth. So it creates a lot of different options for you, which is pretty cool. Militarily, again, you're going to be focused depending on what your character is as far as their class. Healers will get access to stuff like their, what are those things? Archers here. You can see their People's Warband, the Yushia, which we'll take a look at in a little bit. But again, the same kind of format here, but they have a lot of different abilities. So you can see the healer, legendary healer, gets 1 with the people, morale and melee evasion here. In addition, he gets a nice bonus with all fronts, which is a really cool little passive ability, or I'm sorry, an active ability, and then Judgment, another active ability that does a lot of damage and reduces his overall melee damage, so he can do this big splash damage, so a big, huge explosion, more or less. Mighty Knockback is already included into his profile, and then resistant to fatigue. So, obviously, as a legendary character, he gets access to more skills right out the gate. And those skills in and of themselves increase his enlightenment and all sorts of awesome stuff here. So, each one of these skill points is not as minor as it is for the other Three Kingdoms characters. You're looking at your scene, you're getting like 3 or 4 benefits, maybe even 5, depending on what it is, with each one of these skills. So you get access to a lot of stuff here going on. I'm trying to go over each one of these so you guys can see them. And of course, each one of these will benefit usually 2 attributes, or 1 if they're in a corner. The corner ones are typically focused on the 1 attribute. As you can see here, Reach increases Instinct, while all fronts will increase Instinct and Authority. So I guess my logic wasn't 100% right there. But with the other characters, it's typically the corner skills are soloed onto 1 higher amount per attribute. I think that's all of them I've gotten there. If I miss any of these and you want to see a very specific one, let me know. This cool thing, or this skill grants tranquility, or I'm sorry, the skill tranquility grants recovery, which is basically like regeneration, if you're thinking about it from a Total War Warhammer stance, or just the ability to kind of, recover yourself as long as you're not in a duel or in melee, which is really cool. As we take a look at other characters, you'll see a lot of the same abilities, but also some different ones too, right? As you get this different overlap as per dictated by their class. So a lot of really cool things here. And one of the biggest things with Yellow Turbans is their access to their ancillaries is insane. Their ancillaries are all driven very heavily by their missions. So you do this one, defeat an enemy force, you'll gain the Heirloom Spear, which is a pretty good little ancillary right out the gate. And really you're driven very heavily toward these missions, which grant you a shit ton of ancillaries. And on top of it, You don't recruit characters the conventional way. This is all about a movement that's supposed to be spreading throughout China, about liberation and about removing the tyranny of the oppressive Han state, basically, or previously oppressive Han state. So the court, which would typically have your faction candidates here, is not going to be the case. As you expand out and you take territories, you defeat armies, your enlightenment grows. But in addition to that, you also gain access to additional characters. So we're gonna do this real quick. Let that delegate and just really fuck that guy up. That'll do this. We'll recruit that. We'll get this ancillary. That's all lovely. That's great. We'll get another one here which says Yellow Turban Spearman Captain. So if you remember when we talked about Huang Chao, how he basically has the ability to recruit generic captains into his army, you get the same thing with the Yellow Turbans. So we'll take a look at that here after we end this turn. But one thing I want to go into is the way research works. Research is totally different from the rest of Three Kingdoms. Three Kingdoms factions, you approach the Reform tab, you click a Reform, you issue it, and it's done. But this one, or Reform, I always say Reform for some reason. This one you've got 3 different books as dictated by what main legendary class your character is. So her Yi is a legendary healer, which is about Book of the People. And you can see that there's Book of Heaven. I'm looking here, I'll click this. You can see that right there. This is the book. So Book of Heaven is this one. Book of the People is this one. And Book of the Land is this one. And depending on which character you start out with, you'll have one of these unlocked. So Book of the People, that grants you access to the Yuxia, which you can actually have as any one of the other characters. So you just start with this out the gate. You'll see over here, this is another one that we'll have access to, Guardians of the Land. Over here too, that you'll also have access to Archery Masters. So depending on which character you choose, you get access to this. So it's pretty cool. And these, you see how these are kind of grouped here? Well, this depends on your faction rank. So you see that this whole line right here is only unlocked once you reach the faction rank of Balanced. Same thing all the way down. And this one is Healed. Faction rank of Healed is this next column, and then Empowered. This last column is Ascended. So as you progress your faction rank, you actually have more research capabilities unlocked. You can see our research rate at the top is 120. This should be very standard if you've played any other Total War game. If you haven't, well, this is a whole different way to approach research, which is standard to other Total Wars. So now you know how we've been playing all these many, many years. But, oh, I'm sorry, I should have talked about that a little bit more. These researches, they unlock a lot of units. So depending on how you want to play, you know, hey, I really want a lot more cavalry. All right, well, here you go. White Wave Horsemen. Or you also get White Wave Veterans as well, which gets some nice light sword infantry. Or these guys are more, there we go. Encourage Militias gives us access to Militia Virtue and Chanters, which give you a passive buff as well. I unfortunately can't lock this to go take a look at them, but you can see it on the far left of the screen. You'll see Roll Support, Encourage Allies, and under that you'll see, I believe that's that they don't suffer attrition or something like that. And then you'll see that other icon, the blue one, which is encouraging your allies. So it'll take time to unlock this. You can see it'll take 4 turns to unlock this. I'll also gain 10 enlightenment for doing so, and I'll be able to unlock another one after that, so on and so forth. So this is a really great way to say, okay, I want to focus on these units, which of course, here's these as well, Horseback Huntsmen, and your Reclaimers. But then, of course, okay, here's where I'm going to get some campaign movement range increase. Or here's where I'm going to get some income from looting and income from looting settlements and battle and post-battle income. Shit, man. Here's a reduction to construction costs. So basically, however you want your faction to play out is what researches you would be choosing here. You're not as kind of, I guess, pigeonholed into a very specific play style, which is cool. It's very fluid. The only thing you're going to start off with a benefit is one of these is going to be selected for you depending on your character. So reforms are, again, here, we'll choose reforms if we end the turn too. We'll just campaign movement, whatever. Okay. And from here, you have to be really mindful that this campaign is going to be difficult. It's going to be very hard. Her Yi is actually the easiest of them all, I'd say. Gong Du is very difficult because he starts with Ma Tang right next to him, and he's very aggressive, even on turn 1. If you don't go into your well, I guess we'll talk to what on Gong do. I'm getting ahead of myself. And then, where is it? Yeah, Huang Chao. I didn't realize that Huang meant yellow. So I feel like an idiot. So Huang Chao is another one who is, again, it is a very hard one, but I think that Her Yi is probably the easiest yellow turban to start out with. You just don't have as many natural enemies that are focused on you as you do in the other two. Each one of these characters will have a dominion of whatever the character's name is. So dominion of Her Yi. It's focused around their playstyle. So this guy is focused heavily on population. And you can see population reduces recruitment cost, increase to replenishment, reduction to corruption. So you get that same kind of motif built into the character. You'll always kind of have that passively available for you that you can take a look at. Hovering over the faction summary here, we can see kind of a rundown of what our current rank is. And I was talking about enlightenment. So accumulate enlightenment by researching reforms, constructing special buildings, increasing character skills, and granting characters positions. Once sufficient enlightenment is attained, the next faction rank is unlocked. You get a good idea there. For the most part, buildings are all the same. You will have your unique building line here, depending on what character you've chosen. Since this is a legendary healer and healing is our focus here, this is what's going to allow us to have an increase in population, increase to our enlightenment and public order, as per you would expect for this playstyle, this faction. So we're going to go ahead and end this turn real quick, and then we're going to talk about how the court differs with the yellow turbans as well. And again, everything in this game is very focused upon the characters. It's very driven by the narrative that the colors tell of what the character is in Guangxi and everything like that. And it's the very same thing with yellow turban. So taking a look at the court system here, you can see your local leaders. These are going to be the same things as your administrators in any other campaign you would play. But then you've got Great Healer, Lord of the People, Great Commander, Lord of the Land, and Great Learned One, Lord of Heaven. And remember how we saw there was a Book of Land, Book of People, Book of Heaven? Well, each one of these plays into those respective characters. So a Great Healer is going to be relegated only for the hero or the healer class. This is relegated only for the veteran class. And this one is relegated only for the scholar class. And as you progress in rank, both in faction and the characters, you can then put them to Lord of Heaven, or a veteran to Lord of the Land, or a healer to Lord of the People. And it's pretty much following in that same footprint that we see across the rest of this entire game, really. Is following in that, hey, here's the pre-established, I guess you could say, pattern, and that's what you're going to follow with this as well. So as we get Her Yi, we move over here to Chen. Well, we'll probably have to end one more turn. Actually, here's what we're going to do. We'll end that turn. I'll talk a little bit more about something else. I forgot to press the recruit button to show you something. So one of the big things is that you're going to have access to a lot of different military units. And as a result of just being able to recruit so much stuff, yes. Let's get you back over here. So let's take a look here. You can see 178 to just get some peasant spearmen, and then with a 47 upkeep. Same thing with these peasant warriors, and the same thing with these peasant archers. So you can recruit a bullshit peasant army very fast. In addition to that, I can also recruit, obviously we have our two characters here. Here's our other veteran. We got him over time. You can go click captains, again, like we were talking about with Huang Chao. How you can just say, okay, I want a yellow turban spearman captain, because that is one of our missions. Maintain a total unit of 1 unit of the following type, yellow turban spearman captain. This is the cost to recruit him. This is what he will cost in addition for upkeep, but we will get a full retinue with him, which is really, really nice. Of course, these are all peasants, so they're not going to be the most durable in the land. And as you kind of progress up, you'll get access to different ones, but it's just a great way to kind of go, boop, there we go. I've now got half a stack almost. And so you also will get characters just by increasing your enlightenment. They'll just kind of come to you. You're not going to be recruiting them through this candidates menu like you normally would. And since we now have a veteran, I can show this one to you guys. Different skill sets as well, as to be expected. Militarily, he's focusing on disorient, which not on, where is it? So he can immobilize things, lock them down. Whereas when we take a look at our scholar, they have an ability called Inner Fire, which increases the melee attack rate of things. This one also has recovery built into him. You also can see hail of arrows. So all these characters have skills that are obviously dictated to certain buffs that you're not going to get on normal characters in any of the three kingdoms or other characters within this faction. So, I mean, you can see that recovery is a skill for Her Yi as part of tranquility here. But I believe that there's tranquility for him. I believe that Inner Fire is unique to this class in specific, into Scholar, because these are your unique abilities of each class when it comes to the Yellow Turbans. So all fronts, Judgment, which gives you the Judgment ability, and then One with the People. Then you're taking a look at Veteran, you get Commanding Shout, you get Disorient, and then you get Strength of the Land. Those are your ones that are unique to these characters. Same thing here, Surprise Attack. Oh, there we go. Preach. Was the wrong character, sorry. Preach. Inner Fire. And then Condemn. Not to be confused with Condom. So each one of these characters plays very different than what you see in your normal campaign. So it's a really fun, different campaign. You get characters from, again, sacking settlements. Just as your enlightenment grows, people will just kind of flock to your banner. As you kind of increase your campaign awareness and how you kind of progress across this campaign map, you'll get access to more and more characters you can then combine into yours. Like you can see here that we've got Herman. You can just hop into him and merge our two armies there. And like I was saying, ancillaries you're going to be having in abundance because you have so many missions, and those missions are a huge driving force for your faction. So you really need to be making sure you're focusing on those missions. This campaign is a lot more mission oriented and specific versus the other three kingdoms factions, which have missions that are typically a little bit more broad, like just reach the next faction rank or get 20 units. Stuff that's just you're just gonna do by happenstance. The Yellow Turban missions will typically kind of dictate the flow of your campaign, which is pretty cool in a lot of ways because they kind of fit the flow of some sort of like historical stamp for them. So it's a little bit more narrative driven, I guess you could say. But as a whole, that kind of sums up Her Yi. I'm making sure I didn't miss anything here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've got everything. Again, we talked about how those unique buildings. We talked about how the unique court works. And that's the long and short of Her Yi. Let's jump over to another character here. Just take a look at their unique mechanics and what they've got to offer. All right, so we've got Gong Du here. And we're going to go through him a little bit. Everything else, for the most part, is going to be exactly the same that we've talked about before with the faction summary. But of course, you're going to be getting Guardians of the Land. This is his pre-unlocked ability. These guys are going to be heavy assault infantry, good armor, good melee. Now, he has a stance called Liberate. He can pop when he's in, say, an enemy faction territory. So it's a reduction to public order in enemy commanderies, steals food and reserves from local region for himself. You can't replenish your reserves or your military supplies in not your territory. You can't do it in enemy territory. So I'm trying to say, Jesus Christ, my mouth isn't working today. But Liberate will allow you to do that. You know, the people will flock to him and kind of say, hey, here you go. Here's some food. Here's some supplies. His military or his special building chain is guerrilla warfare, and post-battle loot income and military supplies increase. So we'll take a look at that as well. So taking a look over at Wudu. Oh, no. There we go. Up there. What in the five? You gotta be five finger fucking me right now. Well, look at the wrong damn thing. No wonder. Okay, so there's guerrilla warfare. Here is our faction chain for this. Increases to post-battle loot income and military supplies. Pretty significant. Now, one thing I did not go into, unfortunately, and I'll talk about right now, is what makes the Yellow Turban warfare or Yellow Turban units so unique. They have access to a lot of different abilities here. And you can see Guardians of the Land have guerrilla deployment. This is the same thing as Vanguard deployment for a lot of other Total War games. You can start beyond your standard deployment zone. Discipline, so they're not going to suffer morale penalty when the general dies. Charge reflection versus mounted. Every single one of these characters has... every single one of these units has something that is very similar to that, very elite, what makes them really great. Like the Yushia, which we looked at before, they have guerrilla deployment as well. You can see the same thing, I think, with the Master Archers. Oh, no, no dual deployment, but they do get very good missile attack. So, and Archers are extremely strong in this game. That's definitely worth noting. So, you can see here with Master of the Land, he's a legendary veteran character. He already starts here with Desperate Cry as well as One with the Land. So you have a veteran in Gong Du, while our other character will be a scholar, which we'll take a look at in just a couple minutes here. And again, this character is going to be very different because there's so much aggression here from Ma Tang that you have to really be mindful of it. Like, I mean, there's a Yellow Turban Rebellion faction right here. Ma Tang is going to jump on it right as soon as this turn ends. I promise you. So you're going to pretty much kill this guy and Ma Tang's going to pop up. So you have to pretty much fall back behind this river and bolster yourself, which is unique because this faction is all about aggression and really kind of stay on the upper hand of things, not falling behind your enemies. But the nice thing is, of course, you can generate so many armies so fast that it's a little bit harder to fall behind as a result. You can see here Gong Du, since he is a veteran, he's a lot better in combat. He's a little bit more focused towards just two-handed mace destruction. He looks really sick too. I really love Gong Du. I think it looks badass. Delegate that, let it do its thing. And of course, we're going to get access to an ancillary. Full mace. Or Gong Du. What? And like I said, it's going to be a lot of the same stuff here. Maintain a total of 1 unit of the following type. Yellow Turban Spearman Captain. And then research a reform. So some things will be very similar across the entire faction. But some things will be very narrative driven by the character you're playing. You can see here Dominion of Gong Du. We are playing Gong Du, plus 10% to campaign movement range, plus 10% to post-battle loot income, playing into his individualistic military building chain, and minus 10% to corruption. So again, very unique to the character, but at the same time, very similar to the rest of what we will be seeing with Yellow Turban. He obviously has been focusing on the Book of the Land as a veteran. And our scholar focuses on the Book of Heaven, as you know by now. The court system is exactly the same for him as well. He starts up here in the mountains. He only has this territory, so it's a lot more aggression you have to deal with because things are a little bit more spread out, so you can kind of get around a little bit easier to things and not feel like you're going to be jumped immediately. But at the same time, because things are so spread out, they're harder to defend. That's kind of the crux of Gong Du. Now let's jump into our last lord here and just talk a little bit more about Yellow Turban and what my thoughts are on it. Huang Chao is our last lord here to go over. So again, Dominion of Huang Chao increases character experience, research rate. Playstyle focus is research and wisdom as a scholar, to be expected. He does get his unique archer masters like we talked about earlier. And then he gets a Seek Talented Individuals learning assignment. This is an assignment that you can use on any of your towns where you can assign a character to. You can use this to chances of finding exceptional characters. We're getting legendary characters, other characters to add to your faction, which is pretty cool. In addition, he has a governmental building chain called Gardens, which increases your satisfaction as well as research rate. Pretty customary stuff so far here. Again, assignments is in this portion. Can't do it unfortunately just yet because all these characters are deployed as generals. We only can use undeployed characters to do an assignment, so I can't show you that unfortunately. But we can do this, and we can take a look at the garden. Already started. Look at that. Auto build it too. Look at me. Coming up in the world. But Quiet Gardens gives you some satisfaction and research rate, all the way up to the max, which increases your research rate by 25%. So pretty nice. Good satisfaction as well. Dominion of Huang Chao gives us some nice character experience, some good research rate bonus to begin with, and a reduction to corruption as to be expected. I shall not waver. Taking a look at the wielder of the Heavenly Way himself, I believe, and I'm not, don't quote me because I haven't looked this up just yet because my brain's been a flutter lately, but I believe Huang Chao is the beginning of the Yellow Turban Rebellion, the guy who really kind of started it all. So as that, he kind of has this overall stance here where he's got some cool little matched Jians here. He's got some great Huang Chao's armor. Gives a nice increase to his expertise and authority. Now, I mean, you wouldn't expect him to be pretty decent in combat, but he's pretty good. I mean, I believe the healer is more of the champion style character, And I think that the veteran is more of a vanguard, and I believe the scholar is more of a sentinel. I can't remember really 100%. But he gets surprise attack here, a nice little cool ability, as well as one with one with heaven. These are again the skills that we've already taken a look at earlier. Unique skills he's got here, here, and here. We've taken a look at these before. Every single character has access to them. He just starts out with more right out the gate, which is pretty cool here. In addition to that, one thing I want to look at here, I believe. Oh, the archery masters. Look at them in the reform list here. This is the one that he starts off with. So you can see they have a pretty good archery attack. So that's, of course, his big focus as a whole with being a scholar. You can see the rest of these things they unlock, of course, stuff like the scholar warriors. You get access to a lot of buildings through some of these as well. You know, like so this whole building chain, communal tool manufacturer, only going to be unlocked through here. So it's really important to kind of focus on these reforms for whatever you want or however you want to really build out your faction. It's, again, a huge focus of this campaign is just a different reform style that isn't as dipping across the way as you would see in other 3K factions. When you're looking at the reform tree of the other factions, it's a little bit more pick and choose. Okay, I want to go here, I want to go here, I want to build this into this. These two overlap. This is just a lot more of the conventional style that we've seen before. So if the 3K formula kind of intimidates you, the yellow turbans are really going to be where you're going to want to start out. So as a whole, I think that kind of covers everything for Huang Chao. There's nothing really terribly unique as far as like standout mechanics that I can go over without getting further into the campaign. You can say here that where he starts out, he starts very close to like Cao Cao and the such, Liu Bei, Liu Dai, Yuan Chao, Kong Rong. I'm sorry. Her Yi starts close to Cao Cao over here. But again, more difficult than Her Yi, but not as hard as Gong do in my. Let's kind of stop looking at the campaign here. I just want to go over my overall thoughts of Yellow Turban. I apologize that felt a little rushed. We're only allowed to show a certain amount of actual campaign playtime. So, looking at the Yellow Turban faction as a whole, I think it's going to be way more accessible to anyone coming into the game that's played Total War games in the past. If you've never played a Total War game in the past, I think it won't matter what you choose. Have fun, learn the game, you'll get it quickly. But I think that Yellow Turbans waters down, or at least combines enough systems that it's easier to recognize. The Reforms tree, again, looks entirely different. Standard kind of research tree that we've seen throughout the rest of Total War. Way easier to jump into, in my opinion. What I think makes 3K so much different from the other Total War games is how you are very forced in your commandery production, right? You can't simply make settlements that are going to best fit min-maxing your empire construction and then your army construction. You have to make your commandery based off of whatever settlements are within it. So it really kind of limits how you can really min-max your game out. So as a result, the 3K campaign is a lot more difficult. There's a lot more nuance to it. There's so many more moving parts that I think that the Yellow Turban campaign really will give you a way to jump into this game, get your feet wet quickly, understand each and every mechanic before you jump into maybe, say, playing as Ma Tang or playing through your coveted Cao Cao campaign, whatever makes the most sense for you. But I think that, again, Yellow Turbans is a great way to just understand the basics of the game in a really easy, understandable, relatable format. Honestly, I think that through all the stuff I've played already, I really like Her Yi. I think he's really cool, aside from the fact that he looks like Raiden, which is badass. Gong Du is really, really cool as far as his overall aesthetic. I like the way that he can get replenishment while in an enemy territory. I think that's pretty badass. And every time I play like an RPG game, I want to be the guy who dual wields. So Huang Chao has got that going on, so it's pretty sick as well. It just depends on what you want to play. Do you want to be a healer focusing on certain unit styles, a veteran focusing on certain unit styles, or a scholar so focusing on certain unit styles? Even moreover, where do you want to start on the campaign map? These are going to be the things that are going to help you choose which Yellow Turban commander you choose if you decide to go with Yellow Turbans as your first playthrough. So hopefully this sheds some light onto the Yellow Turbans for you guys. If you're wondering what the hell this really encompasses, how is this different from the other 3K factions, you now have a real concrete way to understand how these guys are vastly different from all the other, I think it's 12, 11 other warlords. So hopefully this helps you all out. If you have any other questions, please ask below. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you might have. But as always, guys, have a good one and take care.